G'day, John. Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Leigh. Thanks for the invitation.
You got a beautiful background there, lots of plants.
Yeah, lots of plants. Well, I'm in Canada, so we need to have lots of plants, especially during the winter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it, to have plants in the office? My
Yeah.
trouble is looking after them.
Yes. Well, I'm lucky enough that my partner Adriana has a very good green thumb, so she helps.
Excellent. Excellent. Perfect partnership. And so based in Canada, whereabouts?
I am in Toronto. I am
Okay.
in Toronto,
Nice.
Canada. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, mate, looking forward to our conversation today, a guide to thriving. Everyone wants to thrive in life.
Yes.
Well, I would hope so. What other way is there to live,
I would
right?
hope so too.
Yeah.
Yes. I would hope
This,
so too.
So
Yeah.
you've got a couple of decades in helping organizations, but also individuals sort of have those breakthroughs and thrive, I guess. Tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, so I was born in Caracas, Venezuela, actually.
Right.
And I'm not sure if you've been following the politics, but it's been a tough time for the country, right? You have about 5 million people who have emigrated, including me. And I felt like for the first 40 years of my life, I was in survival mode. And I describe survival mode as this like 911, right? You're constantly bracing for the next threat. You're constantly protecting yourself. You're overthinking. You might not be paying attention to your body or to your needs or to the relationships that matter most to you because you're hyper focused on what
Mm.
matters, what the next thing is on putting out a fire.
Yeah.
Um, and and about 7 years ago, I started on this journey and in learning how to thrive. What does thriving mean, and what does that look like? And what I learned is that over the past 25 years, there's been a tremendous amount of research done into human thriving or human flourishing or well-being, and that a lot of this information hasn't been made public just yet.
Okay.
So that was kind of like the spark that ignited this book.
So what were you doing then when you had that sort of breakthrough yourself?
Ah, very good question. I was working for a Canadian retailer, and as a matter of
Right.
fact, if I recall correctly, I was on a flight to Calgary, from Toronto to Calgary. I was going to we were buying a new distribution center in Calgary, and as
Yeah.
I was on the plane, I was browsing Netflix, and I came across this stand-up comedy special by Hannah Gatsby, who you may know,
Mm.
and called Nanette. And as I was watching it, there was a moment where she shifts from telling jokes to telling a very personal and very vulnerable story. And in that moment, I found myself feeling this overwhelming emotion, and I had one tear drop, down my cheek. And I think that
Hmm.
was the first time that I dropped a tear in 30 years. And suddenly something opened up for me, and I couldn't ignore anymore that this hard shell that I had built for myself to look invulnerable and completely kind of having it all together. This shell started to fall apart, and in that moment my life in a way changed, and I started to get really really curious about what it meant to feel my emotions, to
Yeah.
really understand my thoughts and understand my body.
Okay.
So yeah.
Interesting how a show on Netflix can have that engagement and emotional sort of change within someone.
Yes, it was. I would say maybe a moment of awe, just by seeing this thing.
What was the name of the show?
It's called Nanette. It's a stand-up special by Hannah Gatsby.
Anna
She's
Gatsby.
a queer comedian. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Wow. So at that stage, what was the pivotal? I mean, obviously the something got you there, but what happened after that? Like what was the thing that changed?
Yeah, so I think that moment of vulnerability showed me something that I was avoiding to see. So of course I started trying to engage with people differently, but I found that my habits were so deeply ingrained that that was really hard. So eventually that led to self-exploration. It led to working with a coach. It led to taking courses and doing different things. And it led me to the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania.
Right.
And the moment I started kind of diving into the science of thriving, it was the moment that the final, like, real aha moment came for me. And it was like, oh my God, there's people who've been studying this for decades, scientists,
Mm.
um, on top of the philosophers that have been exploring these questions for thousands of years.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so, so science kind of helped make it real for me because that's how I digest information.
Hmm.
There may be other people who find it through spirituality or who find it through, exercise. But in this case, science was kind of what opened my mind. It cracked me open
Yeah.
to start seeing the world differently.
So you dived in deep. You went and got a master's in what was it? Master's in, I know you wrote it somewhere.
It's called applied positive psychology.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty, and so that was later in life, right?
Yeah, this was a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say coming out of the masters, I kind of started putting two and two together, and I said, okay, I got to make this into a book because I think other people who may have gone through a similar experience than I have may be interested in seeing it. And Leigh, I spent 20 plus years in the corporate world, climbing the corporate ladder and just looking for the next title, the next race, the bigger team, status,
Yeah.
power, wealth. Like those were my big, big drivers. So all of
Yeah.
those extrinsic motivators. And every time I went from one step to the next, I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I thought I was finally going to feel safe and accomplished and, at peace. And that wasn't the case. I just wanted more. It was like
Yeah.
a treadmill, right? Like we
Mm.
get stuck in it.
That's the treadmill of
Yeah.
life most of us are living on, I think, and I think a lot of people listening can
Mm-hmm.
certainly
I
relate
agree.
to that. So that was a big change for you. So did you leave that past role and delve more into this role of coaching, mentoring, and helping organizations and people thrive? Is that when that sort of started? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I my last role at an organization was for a startup. And I joined the startup as chief operating officer, and we raised a Series B round of $135 million. We were we were growing double digits every month. Like it
Mm.
was the fastest growth I had ever experienced in a business.
Yeah.
Um, Um, and this was near the end of 2021. And
And
I
that was for Indigo,
just
was it?
I was burning out. I couldn't. No, that's the name of the organization is Go Bolt.
Okay.
Go Bolt Logistics.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I found myself burning out. It was hard for me to find meaning in my work and to be present with my kids and my family. So I decided to walk away, and that's when I started a consulting firm that then turned into this new venture called Anther, in which I'm partnering with Lara American. She's the founder of. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I don't know. You might have them in Australia. The
Maybe.
Lara bars. They're fruit and nut bars. Anyway,
Okay.
they're pretty popular in North America, and
Right.
she's my business partner, and we've started to build this organization to try and bring well-being and meaning to other folks and to
Mm.
share what we've learned.
Yeah. Nice. It's a couple of fairly significant changes for you there. First that Netflix special on the plane and then that change, like leaving that corporate world behind that you probably spent a couple of decades at least, on working up and stepping up the ladder, as they say. How did you process that? Like, how did you take the courage to acknowledge and make that leap? Because I think a lot of people are sort of there and they just go, look at all the work I've done. Like, I can't do this now. How's that going to look? The fear of going out and doing something different.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I think you just hit the heart of the book, which is this concept of agency. And we don't, we hear the word agency mentioned a lot, but we haven't really fully defined it.
Mm.
I think the definition that I use in the book is agency is the capacity to make intentional choices supported by the belief that those choices matter and have impact. Let's break it down a little bit. I
Yeah.
think um, you know, when I was in the corporate world, I wasn't really leaning into my agency because at the time I didn't think that leaving the corporate world was an option, right? We say, oh yeah, I could always go and do something else and whatnot, but we don't really see it as an option. In order for agency to actually kick in, we have to consider what the alternatives might be as real alternatives, real possibilities for us.
Right.
And that process, at least for me, was a process about challenging my beliefs about who I was. Did I need the title? Did I need the salary? Did I need that? What are the things that I truly needed in my life in order to feel like I was having a good life? And that was kind of like the big concept that started this whole journey.
Okay, interesting. So really tuning in to your values more so?
I would say values is a great word, and a word that I like to use that I use in the book is beliefs. What are our beliefs, and
Right.
can we actually explore them? So one of the tools, Lee, that I present in the book is AIR, and AIR stands
Yeah.
for awareness, inquiry, and reframing. And the idea is that using this tool, we can actually bring a belief to light. Because as you know, and you were just talking to a guest just a few weeks ago, and I forget her name, but she was talking about how so many of our choices are unconscious, right? And I think the idea of air is bringing awareness to those beliefs. So if I believe my value is tied to my achievement, to what I accomplished, to my title, to
Yeah.
my paycheck, to how big my team is, right? Those are beliefs that we normally don't explore. Through air, if we bring awareness to it, so in my case, for me, it was really important.
Yeah.
Those three things, status, wealth, and power were really, really important. And I said,
Hmm.
well, who am I without those things? This is where the process of inquiry stepped in. I said, what does it mean to have wealth? What does it mean to me? And why is it so important to me? And what I realized in this process is that I was looking for safety, for let's call it psychological safety for the sakes of this conversation,
Yeah.
because I have a roof over my head, I have food on my table, I have a lovely family, right? So, but in my mind, I was one step away from living under a bridge, right? In my mind, if I stop running, if I stop sprinting, if I got out of that treadmill,
Yep.
I would be living under a bridge and I wouldn't be able to support myself or anybody else.
So good. Yeah.
So through the process of inquiry is that I learned, oh, is this really true? What are the different steps that need to happen before I get to that point? And I realized that I was pretty far from it. So that allowed me to do the reframing, and the reframing was, well, I only get one life. I can keep doing what I'm doing, and then live with the discomfort of something that doesn't feel true to myself. And true is a big word, but let's just call it true to my or authentic. Let's call it
Yeah.
keep doing something that's not authentic.
Hmm.
Or I can instead deal with the discomfort of doing something else.
Yeah.
And when the discomfort of staying the same outweigh the discomfort of doing something else, it felt like the right choice to walk away. And
Yeah.
that's kind of so that's why that idea of awareness, inquiry, and reframing can be so powerful, especially if we do it with others. Like it's
Yeah.
much easier done as you and I are doing
So
right now through a
working with a
conversation.
coach or something like that. I was going to ask you about that. Like,
Yeah.
what's the practice of doing that? Like, what's the practice of sitting down and going, okay, well, what is it that's in my life that's not quite congruent or in friction? Like, do you sit down and
Mm-hmm.
meditate on that, or do you write down, or do you get a coach?
Yeah. I think all of the above.
Hmm.
Every person has a different approach, and
Yeah.
I one of the things that was hard when I was looking for a publisher for the book is that everybody said, no, we want prescriptive books. And I said, but mine is not really prescriptive, it's more descriptive. I'm trying to give the reader ideas and questions to allow the reader to use their agency to figure out what the right way is for them.
Mm.
So for me, I mean, walking meditations help, working with a coach help. At one point, I tried psychedelic assisted therapy with psilocybin, which helped in terms of dealing with some deeply ingrained habits and challenges that I was facing.
Hmm.
So, but that's not for everybody. Everybody's different. So I think it's more about exploring what it is that it's the right path for you to thriving, as opposed to somebody coming and telling you, well, here's the truth and here's how you thrive.
Yeah.
And by the way, as much as research gives us very good information, any good scientist will tell you research is only an approximation to what may or may not work, but it's
Yeah.
not absolute.
Hmm.
And if you hear a researcher saying, oh, this is for sure the truth, then I would say run the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Like anything in life, right? Nothing can
Exactly.
be definite like that. I'm curious. Talk to us about psilocybin therapy. What got you into that sort of track? 'Cause I've
Well,
heard a
that's
lot
a great
about it, so
question.
it's really an interesting subject.
Well, in January of 2023, actually, it was January 4th. My best friend Nathan called me, and he lived in Caracas, and I was in Toronto. And he called me from the hospital, and he said to me that he had stage 4 liver cancer.
Mm.
And it was a very difficult moment. And for the next 4 months, I saw him deal um, with the disease, and it was a very difficult time. Of course, for him and for everybody around him, his two kids, his family,
Mm.
and all of us who loved him. And by May 4th, as a matter of fact, he passed. In May, he passed. And as I spoke to him and as I reached out to him and I saw his suffering, um, I said to myself that there has to be a better way. So I got really curious and started exploring what are the newest treatments, and I'm calling them newest based on the Western view of what's new and what's old, but
Yeah.
for end of life anxiety and for end of life patients. And what I learned is that since early 2000, there's been what they call the psychedelic renaissance, and a lot of researchers are now focusing their work on trying to understand how psychedelics may help people dealing with difficult situations,
Yeah. Wow.
including belief shifts and how we shift the way we look at things. Um, so the topic was so interesting to me that I ended up writing my master's research on on
Yeah.
psychedelics
Okay.
and how they relate to human flourishing. So obviously, partaking was part of my personal research and my personal journey.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, Lee. Yes.
Did you find like obviously you're obviously a man of great inquiry anyway and curiosity, asking a lot of questions by the sounds of it. Um, did you delve into that study with the goal of figuring out other things in your life or sorting out some past behaviors that weren't quite feeling right? Or was it more just because you were doing the study?
No, I wanted to see more things for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to give you the sanitized version that it was, the researcher and me, but no, there was a lot of curiosity, and I was interested. And you know, I had experimented with psychedelics in my in my early 20s,
Yeah,
um, more for entertainment and socializing.
sure.
What was different this time was that I was doing it with a therapeutic end in mind. And by therapeutic, I don't mean, addressing a psychopathology. I mean healing.
Hmm.
healing a wound or understanding the wounds and healing them better. Um, so yeah, it was I was very curious about it and would have
Yeah.
done it with or without the research, though the research helped, especially when I'm talking to folks who may not be as open to the topic.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very curious about it because it's got like a lot of this stigma against it, right? But I keep hearing about all these trials and the science behind it. When you're doing it, does it require, and sorry, we're going off track here, but does it require um like guidance from a therapist or something to work through it, or was it more just taking microdoses or whatever you do and doing your own inquiry and meditation on it as you go?
Okay, so I'll give you my perspective on it, and I would suggest that anybody who's interested in it should do a lot of research before
Yeah,
they step into the decision of whether to do it or not on their own. So what we know so far, or what the research is telling us, is that as opposed to other medicines like Tylenol, right? We're so used to this idea that if you have a headache, you take a pill and then the headache goes away.
yeah,
So you say, well, it was the pill that made the headache go away. Um, I think what the research is telling us is that with psychedelics is a little bit different. You actually, for most of the trials, there are therapists present and therapists supporting the clients that are going through the journey. And there's a long process of preparation and a long process of integration that happens before the medicine. So, although it is an important part, taking the medicine, some people call it journeying or whatever name you want to give it. Although
yeah,
that's an important part, I would say that the container in which it's done, the setting, and the support that you have
yeah.
before and after is as important, if not more, than the actual experience with the psychedelics.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. So yes, do your research before you delve into that track. But yeah, curious, interesting. So we were talking about there is kind of the methods that you can use to raise out from your unconsciousness into your higher level of consciousness, those things that are sort of holding you back. So that was just one of those practices. But meditation and things like that. Do you have a daily meditation practice now that helps keep you more aware throughout the day?
I do. I do walking meditations. I would say every day, if not almost every day. And I do them. We have a cemetery very close to our house. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I would ever step into a cemetery for leisurely walk, I would have said there's no way. In my work, I've been able to kind of deal with my death anxiety in a different way. So I would call it a bit of exposure therapy. But I end up yeah, walking through the cemetery, and it's very peaceful, and it allows me to be present in the moment. Um, and it's very helpful. I would say, to your point, Lee, I think there are many other things people can do.
Yeah.
From listening to music, to reading poetry, to going into nature, to physical activity. I think the number of activities available to us that can help find that kind of more regulated state and eventually lead to thriving uh, is is countless. It's
Mm.
just we haven't been taught how to do that, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody teaches us when we're kids. Here's what you do in order to thrive, right? Like, or here's what you need to learn about yourself in order to figure out what are the activities or the conversations or the exposure that to others that helps you thrive versus not. And so I think that's become kind of um, my mission, at least for the time being, to understand that a little bit better.
Sounds very counterintuitive, I guess, in this day and age to slow down, to go for a walk in a cemetery. We've got so much overwhelm. We're on this treadmill, like you said. Do this, do more, do that, emails this, whatever. There's just everything's on top of us, and we don't have capacity to just go, boom, let it go. What's really important here?
Yeah. So, Lee, would you be open to doing a quick exercise with me and maybe testing out this all that we've been talking about so far?
Sure, let's do it.
Ah, uh, so let me ask you: have you ever felt like you're in survival mode?
Yeah. I could
Okay,
probably
what
relate
does
to you
that
an
feel?
example to you before, like accomplishment, right? I've gone through in the last few years a real search for balance, and that is, more slowing down. For years now, I've had this morning routine of meditation and exercise, and that's really helped me thrive. But I'm also that person that loves to be busy, loves to be doing stuff, and have a lot of anxiety with when I go, oh, like you said before, if I stop doing this, and this, everything's going to be gone. But then I also have
Hmm.
this awareness of looking at worst case scenario and go, well, hang on a second. Look what I've done so far in life. Look what I've got today. Look what I can be grateful for. So I do balance it out like that, but that still exists inside me to some level.
Yeah, and I would argue, Lee, that um, I I don't think I'm proposing that we can be thriving all the time. And
Mm,
I think it's unlikely that that's the case. As a matter of fact, one ironic and I would say a little funny thing is that, releasing this book into the world has for sure sent me into a survival mode state many, many times, right? It requires challenging yourself and putting yourself outside your comfort zone. The question is, can we find our path back to thriving intentionally, or I would call it agentically? Can we use our agency to say, okay, let me notice right now, I'm in survival mode. What are the things that I can be, or what are the things that I can do in order to gently shift myself from survival mode into thriving? Um, so one example of something that works is this idea of growth mindset, which has now
mhm.
become really
Yeah.
popularized, right? Saying I don't have everything I want yet, like taking a perspective where you say the fact that I'm not where I want to be today doesn't mean that I'll never be here, or I'll never be there, and also questioning what is the motivation behind it, if that
Right.
makes any sense.
Yeah. So that growth mindset,
So
people with that growth mindset often have a high level of agency, a belief that they can have the right disciplines and ability to create what they want, whereas the fixed mindset people don't have that. Do you see that as well, or do you think a fixed mindset person can become a growth mindset?
I think we can all learn new
How to
things.
thrive? Yeah.
Um, uh, um, yes, and to thrive. Uh, Listen, there may be a small percentage of people in the world who have difficulties doing it for whatever reason, but I would say in general, we can all learn new things. We just have to figure out what's the way in which we learn best, right?
Yep.
We were taught that going into a classroom and sitting and listening to a lecture is how you're supposed to learn, but a lot of people don't learn that way. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have learned tremendous amounts of useful knowledge and wisdom through listening to your podcast, right? That has nothing to do with going to a university or getting a degree or doing any of that. So, what is the way in which you learn best? And then lean into that to learn the things that will help you thrive. So, it's a
Mm.
very customized approach, right? So, I don't know. Does that make sense to you, Lee?
Yeah, yeah. I think sort of it always leads me back to this idea that people innately know that they desire change and they desire more. They want to thrive, right? Like people know that, but there's something always holding them back. And it might be these beliefs you talked about before that they want the better life, and probably know what they need to do to create that, but yet still do what they've always done and can't break
Mhm.
through, right?
Yeah, I love that. Actually, Breaking Through was the original title of the book. Then everybody told me, what does breaking through mean? And breaking through what? So anyway, changed to A Guide Through Thriving. But I love that you use that word. Um, I think your agency plays a role here when you say, okay, what is the belief that it's holding me back from doing the things that I want to do?
Hmm.
And that's a difficult process, by the way. Just creating awareness of that belief, it's hard enough, right? I would say one of the beliefs in my work with clients, one of the beliefs that comes up the most, which I would say has kind of like two sides to it, is the belief on one side that I'm not good enough, right? And on the other side, that I need to prove myself. And I think this belief is one of those very profound beliefs that a lot of times we don't recognize or we don't see. And it tends to drive so much of our unconscious behavior and our decisions, or decisions, quote unquote, because is it really a decision if you don't have another choice, or are you just sticking with the grooves and the path and the patterns that you're used to?
Mm.
That's a big question. So the moment you surface the belief and you start inquiring into it, you start asking questions about it, then suddenly this thing that originally was just black or just white becomes black and white. And as you keep asking questions, then you have like a whole rainbow of alternatives in the middle. And then you get to pick from that rainbow what it is that fits your authentic self,
Yeah.
that fits your values and your beliefs.
Mm. So again, that's coming back to that process of awareness, whether it's walking meditation or whatever you want to do, you really need to go there. And I think that's what's holding a lot of people back. Not enough self-time, personal inquiry.
I agree.
How
I
much
think
time do you spend a day? Like, how much time would you sit and do your walking meditation or sit down and just reflect and think?
goodness gracious, more than I'd like to admit, I would say. uh, I think as a result of writing this book and publishing it, I've spent more time. Now, I would say this: awareness is not just a cognitive process. It's not only about thinking about it, but it's also, sometimes you talk to people and they say, I know it in my head, but I can't really feel it, like I don't really believe it. So
Mm.
one of the ideas that I bring into the book is this map with 9 elements. And those elements include beliefs, thoughts, emotions, the body through sensations and actions, transcendence, past, present, future, and the spaces in which we live.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you can find paths to thriving through air, through awareness, inquiry, and reframing, through any of those elements. And while for somebody it might be thinking about it or reading a book or listening to a podcast, for somebody else it might be practicing yoga, which is a purely somatic experience. For somebody else, it might be, a spiritual experience, going to church or to synagogue or to a mosque. So what I'm suggesting is that we don't all have the same kind of approach to it. And
Yeah.
as much as meditation has become really popular, I would say it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important to see what's a good fit for you.
But within those 9 elements you talk about, you could likely find something in each of those 9 elements that you could do daily, weekly, that would really help you instigate that level of awareness, inquiry, and reframing.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say things that you could do and things that you could be. Sometimes it's about not doing anything. Sometimes
Mm.
it's just about being and sitting there with the discomfort. And sometimes it is about taking action. Sometimes action precedes change.
It's a bit of a
I
balance
think
there,
that's
isn't
it.
it?
Yeah. It's tough to talk about this because we live in this kind of polarized world where we're looking for like very simple answers. We want to make sense of all of this complexity um, as quickly as we can and as easy as we can because there's so
Mm.
much complexity coming at us.
Mm.
And I would say that one of the most important things in order to thrive is understanding that there's a lot that we're not going to be able to explain away through our conscious processes, right? And that there's a lot out there that there's all of this layers and nuance that we may not have the time or the energy to understand, right? Like there's a lot that we don't know.
Mm. There is, and I think to your point too, is you need to be patient with the process. Um, and that's something that we don't have anymore. because we want
Yeah.
everything yesterday, you know, but we just don't give things time.
And time is such an important part of this, you know.
Mm.
One of the things that I talk about in the book is that the path from survival to thriving is not a linear path. I describe it as a spiral, that sometimes we go up and sometimes we go down. So when we're thriving, how do we learn from it and how do we help others thrive? Because in my opinion, that's the most powerful kind of thriving, when we help others.
Yeah.
Um, so when we're thriving and when we're kind of slowly slipping into the downward spiral of survival mode, how do we learn from it? How do we say, what's in this experience that can teach me something and that can help me thrive more in the future? So that's kind of one of the descriptions that I put in the book.
Mm. And it's having that when you're spiraling down, like you said, into survival mode, picking yourself up on that and going, hang on, see where this is going, and stopping and figuring out what it is there.
You got it. And finding the resources that work best for you. So
Mm.
resources could be, you know, exercise or music or meditation, like we've talked about, but it's also the people around us, right?
Yeah.
The people that we love and the people that we can support.
Mm.
So going back to that whole Nanette experience and me kind of experiencing my sadness and allowing myself to experience sadness for the first time in a very long time. Um, Sadness is a really powerful way to bond with other people, but it requires us to acknowledge and accept, hey, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm scared. I think emotions are a really, really powerful way to connect with others around us. And as a matter of fact, one of the ideas that's becoming more widely accepted in emotional research or research about emotions is
Mm.
that, you know, in the past, we used to say that emotions were kind of like hardwired. Everybody feels happiness the same way and sadness the same way and grief the same way. And yet, new research from Lisa Feldman Barrett and other researchers is starting to show this idea of constructed emotions, that we actually, it's not just the sensation in our body, but it's also the meaning that we make of the emotion through our brains. So when we are able to process those emotions, um, using awareness, inquiry, and reframing, we get to kind of change the way we relate with them. And I, for one, as somebody who denied my emotions for most of my life, I can tell you that emotions have become the most powerful messengers I
Yeah.
have found to tell me what's important to me, what
Yeah.
matters.
But an emotion really is a trigger for you to go, oh, hang on, this is an emotion. What does this mean? Like actually reflecting on it, not letting it just drive your
Yeah, that's the
behaviors
awareness piece.
automatically, right? Yeah, it's so important. I think, if we can use that as the trigger to go, okay, hang on, what's this? What am I feeling? What is this about? We can, yeah, like attach that meaning to it, in a more conducive way going forward. Yeah, that's really cool stuff. I love it. I think to get there is always a challenge, but I think you can just make that first step and make that choice to practice some of these
Mhm.
things a bit more deeply. I am curious about your walking meditation and how that looks. How long do you walk for? Like, and what are you doing? Are you thinking about work and your projects and the book launch, or are you deliberately trying to reflect on the dead?
It's a great question, and it depends. It depends on the day. That's the short answer. Sometimes I have my headphones on and I'm listening to music, right? And sometimes I take them off and I'm trying to connect with the environment around me. Um, Sometimes I am thinking about life and death, and sometimes my mind just it's just running. You know, this morning I had I went for a walking meditation that was about 2 hours long, and I was thinking about recording this podcast with you, Leigh, and what were the messages that I wanted to convey. And as much as I wanted to, you know, kind of find that meditative Zen space, I couldn't because I was excited about talking to you, and so I said, "Oh, there's excitement here." What does that mean? It means that this is important to me, and that I want to do a good job, and I want to connect with you and with the listeners. And so in that process, um, I I kind of narrowed it down to say, what is my intention for my conversation with Leigh when I talked to him today, and I said, okay, my intention is to offer your listeners one moment where they can go, huh, maybe that's a different perspective I hadn't considered. That was my intention. So maybe I accomplished it. Maybe I didn't. There may be some listeners saying, what is this guy talking about? And others who are saying, I never thought about it that way. Um, so that's what the meditation did for me this
Yep.
morning. Tomorrow it
Yeah.
may be different, uh,
Cool. I
but I
like
am
it.
taking the time to center and to just kind of try and figure out what it is that what how's my agency going to help me get through the day.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like that. I mean, having that practice to then create the intention. And I think intention needs to connect with your values. If you know your values, have that practice of awareness in the morning. Okay, what's the intention for today? How do I want to show up? How do I want to be? And then really go into that, like with each different project that you might have. Really, really important. I was going to ask you a question before because you talked about spiraling into survival. But what about spiraling up into thriving, where it gets to a point where you're just hyper, you're on fire, like you said, when you're in the corporate world, you've just got that new gig, that pay raise, whatever it might be, and you feel like it's just great, but it never lasts. And perhaps it's because we're not
Uh,
connected with that inner soul. We're driven by all those external factors that are making us feel like we're on top of the world. You know what I mean? Whereas sometimes on top of the world can actually be
I
more
know
when you're just damn right connected with, hey, how grateful am I for this life and what I've got and how things are.
I think gratitude is a phenomenal path to thriving. I think for many people that works really well, and lots of research supports that.
Hmm.
Now, can I ask you a question, Leigh?
Yeah.
How do you define thriving for you?
Um, a sense of deeper joy for for life in any given moment, regardless of the pain that I'm in or the joy that I'm experiencing. Just a sense of deep groundedness. I'll give you a story. When I traveled, so I've always been this person that wants to accomplish. I went to corporate and climbed the ladder and did all that. Even in my own business now, I still thrive in the sense of I just want to have this success for whatever reason. It doesn't make any sense, but I guess it's a sense of safety and security, like you said as well. But anyway, there's this time in my life where I decided to pack up everything and we moved to Japan. And I left the corporate world, left everything behind, and got there, three suitcases, couple of kids, three in one. And I remember I did a jog around the neighborhood every couple of days, and I was doing this jog down this paddock, this road between rice paddocks, and I had this feeling like where it was just like, I was like, it was just a relief, like how grateful I was for life. And I didn't have a high-paying job. I didn't have a house, a car, or anything of those things and that for me is thriving, when you feel so comfortable in life that nothing else matters. You're just happy.
That's beautiful. What a great definition of thriving, Leigh. I think it resonates with me a lot. Now, can I ask you, what about that moment do you think gave you that sense of thriving?
Uh, I was more connected within. There was a level of freedom. I didn't feel trapped by society or anything like that. But there was
That's really
concerns.
powerful.
There was concerns, There was,
Of course.
like, okay, well, earning this, how's that going to look in the future? How do I set myself and my family up for the future? So they came back to reality at some point along the line. But it
Of
is
course.
finding that balance, because that was one extreme to the other in my experience.
I get that. And
Hmm.
the balance is probably the hardest part. Now, you used the word freedom to describe this thriving experience. And I'm curious if there was one practice that you could do, no matter how small, that would give you a little bit more freedom in your life, what would that be?
That'd be meditation.
Hey,
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's one of the hardest practices to do. Any form of meditation, for me particularly, slowing down, definitely the hardest thing for me to do. But if I could do that more and do that better, I think it would definitely bring a greater sense of thrive into my life.
you know, it's interesting because you're talking about slowing down, and, and when you were describing your thriving moment, you were jogging, right? Did I catch that
Yeah,
correctly?
yeah, yeah, it was.
So maybe there's something to that, right? What I'm suggesting here is that we've been fed all of these stories about what meditation may look like, and I have a little meditation pillow here in my office that I've probably used twice, because I can't meditate sitting down. I need to be walking or running, or
Yeah,
I'm suggesting that maybe challenging some of the common ideas about what meditation is. I would I would I think I used the term mindfulness in the book instead of meditation. And mindfulness
yeah,
defined as being in the present moment with non-judgmental awareness, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, and and I think, especially if we're running all day in our day-to-day lives, like I'm sure you finish this podcast, it's probably what 6 a.m. Where
Seven
you
o'clock in the
are.
morning. Yep.
Uh, yeah, and then you have a full day, right? Like we just started with this deep conversation. Now you got to go and do all of the things that your day have. So to suggest that you have to kind of sit in a meditation pillow, play some Zen music, and then suddenly slow down, that may be really hard.
Mm,
I know at least for me it is. So maybe the
yeah.
question is, hey, is there a different type of meditation that I need to try? I used
Mm,
to surf a lot when I was a kid, and surfing was the first time I think I had a mindful or meditative experience, however you want to call it.
yeah.
Um, and for me, that's still kind of like a really powerful memory to call back to.
Mm. Well, I think all these things, journaling, meditation, mindfulness is really the word for it, isn't it? Being more mindful. Because that's what those practices create is a level of mindfulness that then carries on through everything else that you've got in your busy day. But that's what's really important because when you're mindful, you're more aware, and when you're busy, that level of awareness brings more intention into what you do, and that creates a greater feeling of contentment, happiness, and freedom, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. It's thriving. I think you've defined it beautifully, Leigh. Now I'm going to suggest a small practice for you
Yep.
or for your listeners,
Yep.
and this is one. I'm an assistant instructor for the masters that I completed in a class that it's called Foundations of Positive Interventions. So this class, it's all about what are those activities that we can do in order to foster positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Um, and I really like this is a small practice. And the way I started doing it is I just printed these 3 questions and I put them on my mirror in my bathroom. And while I was showering or brushing my teeth in the morning, I just asked myself these 3 questions.
Hmm.
The first one you've actually touched on a lot in your experience, which is, what am I grateful for?
Yep.
Just figuring out, and that could be, there's warm water in the shower. I'm going to have the best cup of coffee in just 10 minutes. Whatever that looks like, or I just had the best cup of coffee, or I had a great sleep last night. All of it doesn't matter how literal it is.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
little moment of gratitude can bring you into that present moment.
Yeah.
The second one is, what am I proud of? So just taking stock of what has happened to you in the past day, the past week, the past month, and just picking one thing that you're proud of. And that might be, you know, I had I had a difficult conversation at work yesterday, or I sent that email and I think that email was awesome. And that's it. It's just a tiny, tiny little moment. It doesn't have to be a big thing. And the third one is, what am I excited about? What is one thing that you're really excited about in the future? And what does it mean to
Hmm.
you? Um, I'm taking my kids to a show tomorrow, and I've been really excited about that uh, all of this week. So I've been able to savor that moment and really get the most of it.
It's awesome.
So yeah, that's a
What do you go
yeah,
for? What are you proud of, and what are you excited about?
that's it. You got it.
Good one. You can start teaching the kids too, hey? Lovely.
They have it on their bathroom mirror too. I don't know if
Yeah.
they do it, but they have it.
Mate, really exciting conversation. Thank you for coming on and sharing today. I want to give you a chance to shout out to the audience where they can find you, reach you. Obviously, we'll get a book link into the show notes for your book as well. But yeah,
Yeah. So like I said, I just launched this company 6 months ago. It's called Anther, like Panther, but without the P. And
yeah.
the website is antherglobal.com.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in seeing the type of work that we do at Anther, please reach out that way. And if you want to learn about the book and about my work, you can go to guidetothriving.com. Just
Right.
that's as simple as that, guidetothriving.com. There's actually a quiz there that you can do to see if you're in survival mode or thriving. It's 12 questions. It's very simple. It takes like less than 2 minutes. So if you go to guidetothriving.com, you can take the quiz and you can subscribe to a 10-day challenge, email challenge. That basically does what we did today, Leigh, in a bit of a simpler way.
Guide to thriving.com. I'm just typing it in now. I'll get that up in the show notes as well. Take the quiz, guys. Take the quiz. Give it a
Thank
go.
you.
Mate, pleasure. I'm glad this worked today. As I said, we had a bit of an internet problem at my house, but the tethering seemed to work perfectly. So thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you and appreciate you sharing.
Thank you, Leigh. And by the way, I'm so impressed that you've done 1,130 something of these episodes. That's incredible. I hope you keep doing them for many years to come because they're great.
It's hard to give up now. I love it too much, but yes, we've been doing it for a while. So here I might be 60, 70 still doing them. Hopefully. I do love it. So
Well, I hope to come back on then.
yes, we will have you back. Well, thank you. And guys, check it out, thehiddenway.com. Show notes will be there, all the links to Jon there as well. So make sure you reach out and connect. And until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.